All right, what's going on, guys? This is your Detroit Lions beat reporter, the Woodward Sports Network, Kory Woods, and I am talking with NFL draft analyst Jordan Reid from ESPN. How are you doing tonight?
Good, man. How you doing?
I have no complaints myself. So let's go ahead and get into your Lions draft board. Well, your draft board in general. Honestly, I was a real big fan of it, especially you just watching, seeing the picks that you had pegged to the Lions. And I want to go over the first three that you had from them: 2, 32, and 34. So I want to go first off on Malik Willis out of Liberty. I noticed that you had him as your highest rated QB on your latest grades that you gave out. Just want to know, what made you put Malik Willis above like a Kenny Pickett, a Desmond Ridder, a Matt Corral, Sam Howell, a lot of guys that the Lions have been linked to possibly taking in that quarterback position?
What's just the upside and the potential, Kory? Honestly, I like all of that with Malik. I think there's just so much more meat on that bone as far as what he can be on the next level. And then he wasn't afforded a lot of opportunities at Liberty as far as some of the talent that was around him. He really was playing by himself at times, and I thought he played much better in 2020 as opposed to 2021. He really developed some bad habits from what I saw on tape, but that's just because he was trying to overcome so much. And what happened was he started to play a whole bunch of hero ball, and things just spiraled downward for him. And he had a really bad stretch down towards the back part of the latter part of last year, I should say. So I just think there's so much more to his game overall of what he can accomplish on the next level.
Now, there is a mixed reaction in Detroit about Malik Willis. The Lions have the second overall pick. They have Jared Goff already in tow, but there's talks of, hey, the Lions should go out and go get that quarterback of the future, and you have Willis going to the Lions at number 2. Just out of curiosity, I seen your description. Can you expound on that a little bit more of why you feel the Lions would take Malik Willis, and if you think it's a good selection?
Yeah, so it's either an idea that you love or you hate, honestly. There isn't any in between where we're talking about taking a quarterback as high as number 2 overall. And what's happening a lot with this quarterback class is that you like a lot of these guys, but there isn't that one that you necessarily fall in love with. And I'm not falling in love with Malik Willis. He's a guy that I really like in this class. But when I'm thinking of the Detroit Lions quarterback situation, I'm thinking of Jared Goff. We just saw what the LA Rams did with Jared Goff a couple of years ago, and we saw the repercussions of that with Matthew Stafford. And Jared Goff is a quarterback that you can win with, but in today's day and age, to be an elite team, I think you need a quarterback that you can win because of. And what I mean because of, he has the mobility. I think he has the upside to eventually get and turn into a quarterback that you can win because of. He can create off script. He has that mobility factor that you have to factor in. But the great thing about Detroit's situation is that Malik will not be forced to play right away. Jared Goff is under contract for 2 more years. I think that contract is manageable for 2 more years. And I just really like the situation that he's entering in as well. So they're still building up the roster as far as the perimeter weapons around him. Amon St. Brown looks like a hit from the 4th round last year. And I just think as this roster grows, you have 2 first-round picks again next year. They can surround him with those surrounding pieces right when he's ready to take the field. So I think it's a great situation for him. But once again, I just think this is a situation or a circumstance of where either it's an idea that you love or you're not necessarily in favor of it.
Now, there are some that feel that the Lions should go ahead and go with the guys, say, like Kayvon Thibodeau, Aidan Hutchinson, who you actually do not have going to the Lions, Trayvon Walker, and then trying to get their quarterback at number 32 with, say, a Desmond Ridder. What do you think about Ridder, or with them going edge rusher first and then possibly getting Ridder at 32?
I mean, I understand it, but my line of thinking is if you like a quarterback, why not take him at number 2 overall? Why wait until you see all these other quarterbacks come off of the board to get maybe your 3rd, 4th, or even 5th quarterback in this draft class? So that's my line of thinking with it. And what a lot of Lions fans are saying is if you don't like any of these quarterbacks, then why would you wait to number 32 overall? So that's kind of like my rebuttal to that as far as taking a quarterback at the back end of the 1st round.
Now, they're also just got to go ahead and stay along in the same lines. Sorry about that. There are some people that are thinking like, hey, what about Bryce Young? What about C.J. Stroud next year? They could package some of those picks and try to move up and get one of those guys. What do you say about that?
Well, my thing about that is you can't get caught looking into the future with quarterback classes just because let's take this year, for example. If you were a team that waited on quarterback last year, like the Carolina Panthers, like some of these other teams around the league that are shuffling to find a quarterback this year just because maybe you thought Spencer Rattler or Sam Howell was going to be that guy, now we see the seasons that both of those guys had. Now look at the situation that they're in. They're in the same situations that they were a year ago when talking about these teams waiting for a quarterback. And I think the Lions are going to be better than what they were last year. I think they're going to win probably more than double their win total from a year ago, in my honest opinion, just because they were in so many games. They just didn't finish a lot of them. So I think they're right there as far as I wouldn't say necessarily competing in the NFC North, but I think they're going to give some teams some trouble just based on what they have on the roster right now. So that's to say, if you don't have a top 2 selection, you're probably not going to get a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud. And even though you have all these picks, it takes 2 to tango. And you have to have a dance partner. You have to have somebody that's willing to make that trade with you. What if those 2 teams at the top of the draft need a quarterback? Now you're stuck in no man's land just because we don't know what's going to happen with this quarterback class in 2023.
That's an excellent point. One that I've been trying to stress to a lot of Lions fans here. Like, you just can't get caught up in that, waiting for the future and seeing what happens. And, you don't know if anybody's going to want to play ball with you next year or trying to go up and get those guys. They may want to go ahead and take them themselves. But I want to go ahead and go on to number 32. You had Nakobe Dean out of Georgia going to the Lions. I actually was thinking about Boye Mafe going to the Lions at that pick, but you already had him taken out. What do you see in Dean and what he could factor in? I know you spoke highly of his leadership and him possibly being a Dan Campbell type guy.
Yeah, I love him. I'm a big fan of Nakobe Dean. I think he's the best off-ball linebacker in this class. I have him graded higher than Devin Lloyd. And even though the size is something that's going to be brought up a lot about him, if you turn on the tape, it doesn't take you long to find out and point out number 17 on the film, just because he just has a nose for the football. He very rarely ever miscalculates where the ball is going to be. It seems like he has a GPS tracker on where the ball locations are going to be. And then you talk about off-the-charts character, leadership. This guy's a mechanical engineer major, so he has the smarts that you're looking for at the position. And it just seems like Detroit hasn't been able to get this position right for so long with some of the linebackers that they have taken, whether it was early on, like Jared Davis, or some guys later on. They've been more special teams types that haven't necessarily worked out. So you already pretty much got some leadership on offense. You hit on Panay Sewell last year. You already got some veterans in place. I don't really identify anybody on the defensive side of the ball as far as a leader on Detroit's roster right now. So I think dropping Nakobe Dean into that type of situation, I think now you have that guy that you can see the jersey hanging up when the fans are walking through trying to buy some apparel. I just don't think of nobody like that with the Detroit Lions. So I think Nakobe Dean would be that type of guy for the Detroit Lions franchise.
That's a fair assumption. Now, the Lions hold a couple of picks in the first round, and there are rumors floating around about Deebo Samuel, him asking for a trade request from the 49ers. And, just based off of multiple reports, the Lions are one of several teams that are linked to possibly looking in a Deebo Samuel package, trying to make a trade package around acquiring him. Do you see anything happening before the draft or during draft night where the Lions could package some of those picks and maybe some from next year to go grab a Deebo Samuel?
I just don't think they're in a situation to do that, honestly, Kory. I just think they just need to stay patient and just trust your draft board. I think Brad Holmes does a terrific job in the scouting department. I've done a great job of identifying talent. I really like some of the picks that they hit on last year. I like the 2 defensive tackles that they took last year. I think even though they came along a little bit slowly, I think they're going to take a leap this year. We know Panay Sewell's already a stud. Amara St. Brown is a really good player already. So I just think they have to trust the draft board, and I wouldn't be in a rush to give up high draft capital and then also give a wide receiver $25+ million a year. I wouldn't be a fan of that, especially considering where the Lions are in their rebuild right now. I just don't think they're at that point right now where they need to be trading for proven players, just because that seems to be a move that you want to take to get over the hump, like the Miami Dolphins did with Tyreek Hill. Miami's trying to get over the hump. I don't necessarily see Detroit in year 2 with Brad Holmes and also Dan Campbell. I just don't necessarily see them at that position in their rebuild right now to make those type of moves.
Understandable, and that's fair to say. I was thinking of the mindset of like, hey, maybe they could, if they're thinking long term that Jared Goff would be the guy, you have a DJ Chark in tow now, Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got a lot of guys coming back. I mean, because last year, Goff was throwing to his 4th, 5th, 6th options as his 1, 2, and his 3. So I was just thinking, like, if you plug in a Deebo Samuel, hey, maybe you could think about looking at Goff long term because he just turned 27.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but I don't know. I'm just not a big Goff fan, honestly, and I think he's one guy that just could keep the ship afloat But when you're looking at the type of quarterback that you need to consistently contend on a year-to-year basis, I just think you need a guy that you can win because of, not one that you can win with. And I know Dan Campbell came out and said in support of Goff that you don't need an elite quarterback to win consistently in the NFL, and I completely disagree with that. Just because if you think about all the contenders around the league, they have an elite quarterback or a near type of elite type of quarterback. That's how you contend every single season.
All right, now let me go ahead and shift to some hometown cooking. Aidan Hutchinson out of Michigan. He has the highest grade of your players in your late, like I said, in your latest player grades. I think he's a dynamic player, but I was thinking of if the Lions were to go in the edge rusher category, I was thinking of Kayvon. I was on the Kayvon Thibodeau train before, but then I started coming around on Trayvon Walker. What makes Aidan Hutchinson just stand out to you above the rest of the pack?
It's just the floor with him, honestly. You know exactly what you're getting when he walks through the door. There's no such thing as a quote-unquote safe prospect in the NFL draft, but you know as hard as he works, the production that he's had, and then also what he's proven to be at Michigan, I just think the floor is so high with him. Now, he's not as physically gifted as some of his other peers, like a Trayvon Walker and then also a Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think the ceiling is as high as some of those guys, but when you're talking about a baseline level of what he's going to be in the NFL, I think scouts and some teams just are going to trust him a little bit more as far as what he can be walking through the door immediately.
All right, now there's one guy that I do have as potentially being one of the sleepers out of this group of these edge rushers, Purdue's George Karlaftis. What do you think about him being a potential sleeper out of that group?
Yeah, he's one I went back and forth with, honestly, Kory. He's very young. He's only 21 years old, one of the youngest prospects overall in this draft class. He had some spotty play, but he was very productive last year, too. Notre Dame in the Iowa game, he was terrific, but Ohio State, he did have some struggles. And it's not just me with this line of thinking. There's a lot of people that are hot and cold on Karlaftis. So I'm really going to be looking to see where he ends up going in the NFL draft. Some people have some questions as far as where he could play on the next level, which scheme does he fit, and then just his bend overall.
Hey, I got a question. Another question that is more than outside of the away from the pack. Are you getting much sleep right now?
No, I'm not. As you can see, I'm in my car right now, so I don't get any sleep at all this time of year. But it's like Christmas time for me. Just waiting on Christmas Day to get here. I can't wait for next Thursday to get here, so I'm super excited.
Hey, as am I. So I want to go ahead and end this on a real high note. Just want to put you right in the fire. If you have to pick a team right now that will make a shocking or head-scratching selection on the first night next week, who would you say that would be and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. It probably would be the Panthers. I think they're going to go maybe not at 6, but maybe at some point. I think they're going to go with Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from Pittsburgh, just because Matt Rule has to win next year, bar none. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, just because he was very underwhelming the past 2 years that he has been there, got off to the hot start. But knowing that he's on the hot seat, I think he's going to want a quarterback that is more pro-ready or ready to go right now, but that's not necessarily to say that he's going to be the best of the bunch. So Kenny Pickett is going to end up being a top 10 pick for the Carolina Panthers, and I wouldn't agree with that.
All right, there you heard it, guys. That is ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reid. Jordan, once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with the Woodward Sports Network. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you as always, Kory.